Thank you. Good evening and call to order. Beaumont City Council regular council meeting for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 at 6 p.m. here in City Council chambers. A bit of an evening this evening. Councilor Barnhart is still on vacation. Councilor Swain got called away for business. He's not able to join us this evening. Councilor Natelavas, Nathan is on remote, and our city clerk, Shalane, is also remote. So I'll be monitoring the screens, make sure I get everybody speaking and so on. So it may be a little slower than usual, but I'll make sure everybody gets a chance to speak in case I miss a hand up or something. So with that, we are called to order. Begin with our land acknowledgement. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory, the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people, and the land. We have 3 proclamations this evening, so bear with me, and a couple are pretty long here. Earth Day, April 22nd, 2025, whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, food and water shortages, economic struggles. And whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a moral right to be a healthy, sustainable environment and with economic growth. And whereas it is understood that citizens of the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges. And whereas a green economy can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns. And whereas it is necessary to broaden and diversify the global movement to achieve maximum success. And whereas the City of Beaumont hereby encourages its residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the Earth and commit to building a sustainable and green economy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2025 as Earth Day in the City of Beaumont, dated 22nd of April, 2025. Pardon me. Hydrogen Week, April 22nd to the 24th, 2025. Whereas the City of Beaumont is proud to be Edmonton's region's longstanding leadership and expertise in the energy sector, and whereas the City of Beaumont is confident that the Edmonton region's abundant talent, infrastructure, and resources will position Canada as tomorrow's global hydrogen superpower, and whereas the Edmonton region is a national leader in clean energy and has the experience, infrastructure, and resources to produce low-cost, low-carbon hydrogen at a global scale. And whereas the world is transitioning to a net zero future and the City of Beaumont is ready to move aggressively as a leader within the Edmonton region to take advantage of this $2.5 trillion global opportunity for Alberta and Canada. And whereas the Edmonton region can meet domestic and global demand and decarbonization efforts, and whereas the City of Beaumont stands ready to help Canada's emissions reduction goals using hydrogen. And whereas Canadian and international leaders from across the entire hydrogen value chain are coming together to discuss and invest in the future of the hydrogen sector at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention from April 22nd to 24th in Edmonton, Alberta. Whereas the week of April 22nd to 24th represents an opportunity for the Edmonton region to showcase its unique strengths in hydrogen production, adoption, use, and innovation. And whereas Canada's path to net zero runs the Edmonton region, now for be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim April 22nd to 24th, 2025 as Hydrogen Week in the City of Beaumont, dated April 22nd, 2025. Sorry, a little dry today. Lastly, Workers' Compensation Board Day of Mourning, April 28th, 2025. Whereas April 28th is recognized across Canada as the day to mourn victims of workplace accidents and for the renewal of the pledge to make a safer workplace for everybody. And whereas in 2024, 203 Alberta workers died from injuries or disease related to the workplace. And whereas honoring their memory, employers and workers can make a difference by working together to keep each other safe every day. And whereas the City of Beaumont recognizes April 28th as a day to mourn victims of workplace accidents and bring awareness for the need to establish safe conditions in the workplace for all. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2025 as Workers' Compensation Day of Mourning in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 22nd of April, 2025. Next on our agenda is the adoption of our agenda. Madam Clerk, I believe we have a change to our agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do have a change. We have a couple of changes to our agenda. We have a deletion of item 7.1, the traffic safety bylaw 108 5-25. Administration is removing this from the agenda this evening and will be bringing it back at a later time. The second amendment that we have is moving item 7.3 up to 7.1 and moving 7.4 to 7.3 and item 7.5 to 7.4. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Member Council willing to move the other on that with five councillors present, a vote of 3-2 is a minimum to carry any kind of motion. Just so it's for the record stated that with only 5 councillors, majority is 3 to pass any motions. Councillor Penrod, do you care to make the motion on the adoption of the agenda?
I would, Mayor Daniluk. I move that the April 22nd, 2025 council agenda be adopted with the following deletion. Item 7.1, bylaw 1085-25, traffic safety bylaw amending bylaw, first, second, and third reading, and moving item 7.3 up to 7.1, moving 7.4 to 7.3, and 7.5 to 7.4.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process? Councillor Nantalabas, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. 5-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you, Council. Next on our agenda is open forum. Madam Clerk, I believe we have one gentleman registered for open forum this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We do have one registered open forum this evening, Mr. Anthony Colesmith, if you'd like to come up to the front to present.
Mr. Colesmith, welcome back to Council. Please state your address name and address for the record, please. And you have 5 minutes when you begin your presentation. When you're ready, please.
Am I coming through okay?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, my name is Anthony Colesmith. I'm a resident of Forest Heights here in Beaumont. And I'd just like to comment on something I saw at the last council meeting on April 8th. So at the April 8th council meeting, 2 residents who wished to speak at open forum in relation to some challenges with the multi-unit development in their area were initially denied the opportunity to speak because they had not registered beforehand. A motion by council was put forward to temporarily suspend the meeting bylaws in order to allow those 2 residents to speak, which I commend you, that was a great move. And after much discussion, that motion passed. The residents were each given their 5 minutes to have their say. Just worthy of note, the discussion around the motion took a little longer than the time each resident was allowed to present. Later that same evening, administration presented 20 pages of slides outlining bylaw 1070-25, the land use bylaw amending bylaw. The presentation took a little over 22 minutes to deliver and included diagrams, lot plans, photos, detailed explanations of the proposed changes. And at the top of the slides, and mentioned afterwards in response to a question from council, the proposed bylaw was created and delivered in response to an application by Stantec Consulting on behalf of Qualico Communities. The changes proposed in the bylaw included shrinking lot sizes, easing appearance requirements, and increasing the permissible lot coverage. The applicant wasn't present at the meeting to take any questions, and the bylaw was given first reading. These 2 things are related. I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
So from the outside looking in, there's an inequality and a disparity here when it comes to the voice of residents. In many ways, the concerns raised by those residents from the last council meeting stemmed from changes made to the land use bylaw in 2019, the changes to minimum parking and what types of building can be constructed and the removal of consultation requirements. So with that bylaw being put in place, their voices at the time had been essentially silenced and their input no longer sought. The issue that with that land use bylaw, they've been raised by many residents 5 minutes at a time in open forum over the last half decade. Residents who have to navigate obstacles and articulate concerns and advocate for changes to bylaws have to do so within the 5 minutes allotted during open forum. Registering isn't always easy. I'm familiar with the process, and I had challenges getting registered tonight. In contrast to the challenges open to residents, a developer was afforded administration's time to argue on their behalf for a land use bylaw amending bylaw. They were provided administration time to hear their proposal, craft 22 slides of presentation, draft a bylaw, present it on their behalf for 22 minutes to council, and then have administration take questions from council on their behalf. And in this case, the developer's request was given first reading. At the end of the presentation from administration, the question was asked, what problem is this trying to solve? That was a great question. The answer? It was a request from the developer. They're asking for the changes. There wasn't really much more detail than that. So a developer seeking change, for which I haven't seen a single presentation at open forum and apparently no request from council, has provided the full support of administration, creating the bylaw, presenting it, and recommending it for first reading. On the other hand, there are residents who are trying to speak about their valid concerns and initially, denied and had to go through the extraordinary steps to pass a motion to suspend the bylaws. And I feel that's a disparity. And that's just all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colesmith. I appreciate that perspective, and you raised some interesting points on our meeting procedures bylaw. With that, any questions, members of council, for our presenter this evening? Councilor McCook, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you for coming in and raising this concern. Can you speak to some of the challenges you had registering for open forum?
Largely it was due to send an email. Emails aren't always responded to, so I tried calling. I tried calling on Wednesday multiple times, Thursday multiple times, Friday, which is a stat, but I tried anyway. Monday, which I'm sure wasn't a stat, but it turns out the offices were closed anyway, and multiple times. And finally ended up leaving a voicemail message this morning at 9 o'clock, which was returned at 11:30, just a half hour before the deadline. So it was kind of cutting it close, despite having been trying to get through for the last 5-6 days.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Telebus, I can't see you on the screen. Do you have any questions at this point?
Yeah, I guess first, just thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment. Thank you, Mr. Colesmith, for coming forward and presenting. Again, it's always difficult sometimes, so I really appreciate you doing that. Second to that, just a quick question, I guess, in terms of what you'd like to see differently. Like, what is a bit of a proposal that you'd like to present to council to potentially better the engagement time or presentation time that's provided to the community?
I'm glad you asked. I think 5 minutes is a little short if you're trying to articulate something complicated. To cram it all into 5 minutes, it's a little tight. I'd propose extending that to 7 minutes. I would also propose that I think there's 3 spots available right now for open forum. If they are filled with people who pre-register, great. If there are open spots at the day of the council meeting and somebody's here would like to present, allow them to register then. I think that would be very helpful. And then providing feedback, maybe a little more timely response, or have somebody answer the phone if you're trying to call and register. There's a number on the website, but you have to go through the phone maze, and it 100% of the time seems to go to voicemail because you have to click that other option. And then I would say also with the developer, they had a request that nobody asked for, right? Nobody in town was advocating for it. It wasn't an open forum. I didn't see a councillor requesting it. Yet they had a request they'd like to make with respect to our land use bylaws, and they were afforded, I'm not even sure how much administration time, maybe some checks and balances on that process.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Any further questions, Mr. Colesmith? Again, thank you for coming in. I do appreciate your perspective, and our meeting procedures bylaw was passed about 3 years ago, and we normally look at bylaws every couple of years to make sure they're still current and that sort of thing. It might be something we can look at in the near future, possibly a review of our meeting procedures bylaw, which is what you're basically talking about, is open forum, how it's worked, how it's structured. So at this point, maybe we'll grab a coffee and talk about it at some point down the road if you like. But having no further questions for Mr. Colesmith, thank you for your presentation this evening.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is our consent agenda. Madam Clerk, could you please put the consent agenda on the screen, please? There's only 2 items on the consent agenda. Is a member of council willing to move consent agenda as...
Move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5.1, regular council meeting minutes, April 8th, 2025. The council accept the minutes of April 8th, 2025 regular council meeting as presented. Item 6.1, 2025 Council and Committee of the Whole Meeting Schedule Amendment, that the amended 2025 Council and Committee Meeting of the Whole Schedule, as set out in Attachment 1 of the April 22, 25 Legal and Legislative Services Report, be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion? Any questions, Councillor Telnabus?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, would you please activate the voting procedure for the consent agenda? Councillor Telnabus, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously, Council, 5-0 in favor of consent agenda. For bylaws, Madam Clerk, will you put on the first bylaw on the screen, and then we'll have administration speak to it. These three next bylaws all have to do with our school site. So what we'll do is we'll have administration present, and then I'll make the motion for first reading. At that point, Council can ask clarifying questions on each bylaw as we go through. So the first one will be 7.2, bylaw 1076-25, Azure Area Structure Plan Bylaw, amending bylaw for first reading. Who from administration will be presenting? Mr. Tarnowski? Great, let me make sure I got your mic on. Give me a second here. Your microphone is on. Please begin your presentation when you're ready, please.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Katrina Tarnowski from Long Range Planning, and I'm accompanied by our Senior Planner, Matthew Grattan, and Manager of Long Range Planning, Joanna Swong. I'll be delivering one presentation this evening for the following three related bylaws: 1076-25, 1077-25, and 1078-25. These bylaws are associated with three applications submitted by Select Engineering Consultants on behalf of Beaumont Lakeview Development LP, care of Avilia Developments. Bylaw 1076-25 would amend the Azure/Lakeview Area Structure Plan, or ASP, in order to accommodate a new joint high school site. Bylaw 1077-25 would amend the Municipal Development Plan, our Complete Community, or the MDP, to facilitate the ASP amendment. And then bylaw 1078-25 would redistrict portions of the southeast quarter of section 26 and plan 0721688 block 1 lot 1 from conventional neighborhood to commercial district in 2 areas, from conventional neighborhood to integrated neighborhood in 4 areas, and from the commercial to integrated neighborhood district in 1 area. The subject lands are located in the southeast part of Beaumont, with the Triumph Estates neighborhood to the north and Beauval Park, Beaumont Lake South to the west. Highway 625 forms the southern boundary of Azure, while Range Road 241 is on the east. An aerial image and site photos of the area are located in the Planning and Development Report included as Attachment 2 to Bylaw 1076-25 on pages 110 to 119 of the agenda package. Bylaw 1076-25 to amend the Azure/Lakeview ASP follows collaboration between the City of Beaumont and the developer to set the stage for a new joint high school site. To accommodate this project, the ASP is being proposed to be amended by increasing the size and configuration of the school site, by converting one high-density residential site into a medium-density residential site, converting and locating the mixed-use area in the southwest to a commercial area on the corner of Highway 625 and Range Road 241, removing the reverse housing land use, expanding the stormwater management facility, a minor reconfiguration of other municipal reserve lands, and realigning of collector and local roadways in the southern portion of the plan area. The developer is also proposing to extend the name Azure to the entire quarter section, removing the name Lakeview from the southern portion of the plan area. These amendments to the ASP triggered the need for minor amendments to the MDP, reflecting the same changes. This is outlined in Bylaw 1077-25, which proposes to relocate and resize the different character areas in the Azure neighborhood, this being commercial, community commercial/employment center, institution/public facilities, parks and open space, and future residential. Finally, to enable these high-level land use concepts to be permitted developments on the ground, Bylaw 1078-25 proposes a redistricting of 7 areas in Azure. No new districts are being introduced in the proposed redistricting, and commercial C district, conventional neighborhood CN district, and integrated neighborhood IN district remain in use. 2 amendment areas represent the relocation of the employment lands from the southwest to the southeast corners of the plan area. 3 amendment areas change the land use from CN to IN district in the southern portion of the neighborhood, and 2 further amendments in the northern portion of the neighborhood represent small corrections to align district boundaries with property lines in the proposed future subdivisions. A redistricting map can be found as Schedule A to Attachment 1 of Bylaw 1078-25 on page 128 of the agenda package. Overall, the amendments to the ASP, MDP, and LUB will result in minor reconfigurations to land uses and the transportation network, and do not change the overall development vision for the Azure neighborhood. They will result in an expected reduction in density of 1 dwelling unit per net residential hectare, as well as a small increase in employment lands of about 1 hectare and a large increase in municipal reserve lands. Administration worked with the applicant to conduct public engagement for the 3 concurrent applications. They were circulated in February and March to affected landowners within a 100-meter radius, to impacted agencies, and to internal city departments. 2 responses from landowners were received, 1 in support of the development and 1 with questions for administration. Administration supports the amendments because they would enable the efficient delivery of 2 schools with shared amenity spaces on a joint site to meet the needs of Beaumont's growing population. They align with the general intent of the NDP for the Azure neighborhood, and they retain compatibility of the proposed land uses in the neighborhood with adjacent, existing, and future development. Bylaw 1077-25 to amend the MDP must be considered first by council. Should council give this bylaw first reading, then afterwards you may consider also giving first reading to bylaw 1076-25 for the ASP amendment, and finally 1078-25 for the redistricting. Public hearings and second and third readings will then be scheduled for all 3 bylaws in May. This concludes my presentation, and administration welcomes questions from council on the 3 applications.
Thank you, Mr. Nowski. I appreciate that. I think I misspoke of having 1076 go first. We do have to do 1077 first, then 1076, and then 1077 should 1077 pass in the first place. And all 3 bylaws will have public hearings scheduled at a later time. So with that, would you please, Madam Clerk, I will move that bylaw 1077-25 as your municipal development plan bylaw amending bylaw be given first reading. With that, I'll open up the floor to question members of council for clarifying questions on first reading. Any members of council in the chamber here have any questions for first reading at this point? Councillor Penrod, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Question for administration. I appreciated reviewing the full report prepared by the consulting firm, Select Engineering, kind of in support or in the process of applying for and working with you for these changes. I was struck by the disclaimer that starts the report on page 64. It's quite an extensive disclaimer and essentially ends up saying that the consulting company can't be held accountable for accuracy, exhaustiveness, and completion of the reports. And so begs the question, is a disclaimer like this industry standard? Is the first part of my question. I haven't noticed it in previous reports, but that could be me missing some fine print. Maybe it's not always put so boldly at the front of a report.
Mr. Tarnowski or administration members can answer that, or you have a moment once you find it.
I think it's this section here.
Ms. Raymond, did you wish to speak? Sorry, I've got a mic coming on there.
Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod. These types of statements are standard language that are included in plans, and as well as supporting technical reports that are submitted at the time of application.
Yeah, thank you. It wasn't meant to be a gotcha question. I just got done working through a legal process on buying some other land and just tuned in, I guess, to legalese and that fine print. So wanted to ask the question here tonight. What checks on accuracy, exhaustiveness, and completion does the City of Beaumont perform as part of our due diligence upon receiving and reviewing reports such as this?
Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod, the reports and plans that we do receive are reviewed through the circulation process by all of our departments internally. And then ultimately, when the city signs development agreements with developers to actually proceed on subdivisions, there is legal language included in those agreements that I guess ensures that the city is only held liable for the things that we are responsible for. I don't know if you know better than that.
Ms. Raymond, yours to add to the discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
When an engineering consultant submits their drawings later as part of the subdivision process, they are stamped, they are authenticated, a professional engineer has signed off on them that they're done with the current engineering principles and practices and that sort of thing, and they are taking responsibility for the drawings and the content that is in that drawings. The city's role is making sure that they meet our standards, that generally acceptable and constructible, but we're not looking for that. I guess we're not going through it and re-engineering and redouble checking that. We are relying on a professional engineer who has put their stamp on that these are accurate.
Yeah, thank you. And that sounds like it's not a process unique to Beaumont, but the process followed across the province. Is that correct? Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any further questions at this time. I'll save my questions for should this pass first reading for the public hearing that will follow. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cook. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just a couple brief questions. The one person that had questions, were they satisfied after their questions were answered?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook, yes, that was a phone call that I took. Their questions generally were based on where they were located in the neighborhood and how they might be impacted and whether there was any action that they needed to take when they received the circulation letter. So no concerns were expressed after that had been explained to them.
Okay, thank you. And then just a note in the package, it said administration is also reviewing an associated application SDA-25-03 to subdivide a large portion of the planned southern lands. Is this separate from anything here being proposed here? Was this just kind of like a note added or?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook, the subdivision would be the next step in the development process. So should all three bylaws be approved, the next step is to then subdivide the land. Administration began reviewing it in advance of these three bylaws being approved so that as soon as we were ready to move forward, we would be able to present the subdivision to the subdivision authority, just because we know that getting the school lands prepared in the most efficient way possible is of kind of immediate priority to the city. So it was a time-saving measure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Newkirk. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And just I guess a comment for administration, page 117 of 137, in the report that supports all the report, just a thank you for me on that table, because that's a really good summary that shows, what the changes actually are, the current proposed and the difference. And one of the positives that I really see on there is the Parks, Open Space and Schools MR, and we're up 3.98 hectares over where we would have been. So that's quite a big win for the neighborhood, especially when we're looking to put schools down there. So thank you for the that very succinct picture. Otherwise, it leaves people wanting, like, what's changed? Where were we? What, you know, and it's just all in one spot. So I appreciated that.
Thank you, Councillor. Great comment. It was very helpful to the report. Councillor Telebus, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you, Mayor.
You're good? Okay. Seeing no further questions, members of council? Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for first reading of bylaw 1077-25? Councillor Telebus, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Council. That passes unanimously, 5-0 in favor of first reading. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please put bylaw 1076-25's motion on the screen for first reading? I'll make that motion, and we'll continue on with our questioning process. I move that bylaw 1076-25, Azure Area Structure Plan bylaw, amending bylaw, be given first reading. With that, any members of council have questions on bylaw 1076-25 from the presentation from administration earlier this evening? Seeing no questions, Councilor Telebus, do you have any questions on bylaw 1076-25?
I do not. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Councillor. Council, seeing no questions on this bylaw first reading, at this point, I will now ask for the voting, initiate the voting process, please. Councilor Telebus, how do you vote on first reading of bylaw 1076-25?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Council. That also passed unanimously, 5-0 in favor of first reading of bylaw 1076-25. All right. Madam Clerk, could you please put on the first reading motion for bylaw 1078? I'll move it for expedient purposes. I'll move that bylaw 1078-25, Azure Land Use Bylaw, amending bylaw, be given first reading. With that, members of council, have any questions? Clarifying question for council's presentation on bylaw 1078-25, which is the third bylaw in our approval process for the school site. Seeing none, Councilor Telebus, do you have any questions for bylaw 1078-25?
I do not.
Thank you, Councillor. Council, seeing no questions last time? All right, I'll ask you to please initiate the voting process for bylaw 1078-25. Councilor Telebus, how do you vote on bylaw 1078-25?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. Council also passed unanimously, 5-0 in favor of bylaw 1078-25. Thank you, Council. All right, sorry, my screen went dead for a second. Sorry. Just give me half a second to catch up. Gotta love technology. There we go, perfect. Okay, that takes care of our three bylaws on from 10.7.1 to 7.3. Next on our agenda is bylaw 1081-25, property tax and supplemental property tax bylaw, first, second, and third reading. Ms. Baharchuk, Mr. Joharchuk, are you going to present this evening? Thank you. Let me get your mic going there for you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're good to go.
So administration is here to seek, as you said, first, second, and third reading of the property tax bylaw. If you recall, on December 10th, Council approved a 5.01% tax increase. This is the next step in the process to send the tax levy out. We need this bylaw in order to prepare tax notices to send it out to the residents to collect both the money required by the municipality as well as to requisition funds on behalf of third parties that also have requisitioning authority, which can include the Alberta School Foundation, Leduc Regional Housing, and our designated industrial properties. Just a reminder that in the 5.01% was also a informal requisitioning body through the RCMP that negotiated a tax increase that impacted the municipality at 1.88% of the 5.01. So as you know, I did present to council a few weeks ago on the high-level mill rate policies and processes that impact the tax collection. And I did talk about a few of the elements there, but to just go through a little bit of the notes. So we set the tax rates through the policy. We've determined what the revenue requirement is, which is just over $31 million, the requirement from the municipal side. Once we finish the year end, we get a finalized assessment from our assessor. There were no amendments required this year, so our tax rate stayed at 5.01%. We then do some math where we include the requisitions. We take the total assessment divided by, and then divided by the total dollar value required. That comes up with the mill rate. We then apply that to the residential and then adjust it for that 1.4 to 1 ratio for the non-res to residential elements. And I would just like to add in that there was some questions at an earlier session about home businesses and the elements, what's available from that perspective. And just for clarity, assessment is based already on the home business elements where they have submitted permits. And so that's the element that is already being requisitioned and captured in the non-residential tax notice piece. There are some challenges around enforcement and such, but there is already a rate that's collected on the home-based business, and it cannot be different than the other non-residential. Non-residential can just be one class. So just for clarity on that piece. So after we do the adjustments for the res and non-residential rates, we do the calculations, and then you'll see it is in the attached tables on the bylaw. That's what the rates work out to. I'm not going to go through all of that because it's quite a few different numbers. And then with the approval of the bylaw through council, we then will send out tax notices to the public and collect the revenues. So just to highlight again, it's founded in revenue neutrality, so that the city neither profits nor gain or losses from changes in assessment on the market. And then we did include, I'm not going to go through it, but attachment 7.5 regional tax comparisons. So that is for council's information on the tax rates and what a $500,000 property pays in taxes in each one of the represented communities. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Boharchuk. I appreciate that. So I'll move first reading, and then we can ask any questions from Jay. I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions, I'm sure. So I will move that bylaw 1081-25 property tax, supplemental property tax bylaw be given first reading. With that, open up the questions of members of council for Jay for any clarifying questions. Councilor McCook, Kat, you have the floor to start with.
Thank you, and this may be more of a communications question. Thank you for the thorough report, it's always, and for our session earlier. But for residents who might see their property taxes increase above the 5%, what sort of information and education are we going to be putting out to kind of explain the reasoning for that?
Through the mayor to Councilor McCook. So we are already working on a communication strategy. We have filmed a brief interview with communications interviewing me about tax rates and mill rates and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting to see. So we are working on that. In that video or in that interview, I do talk specifically about that 5.01% tax increase really has nothing to do with how much your taxes go up. And I'll caveat that with the 5.01% is how much the municipality needs to requisition in order to run business, right? And that our year-over-year change in how much we ask for is 5.01. That is not a direct correlation to how much a person might pay on their property taxes. So there's a number of other factors and variables that go into that, including the requisitioning body. So if Alberta Education does or doesn't requisition, it can have a huge impact on tax rates regardless of what the municipality does itself. We have the Leduc Housing Foundation that also is a requisitioning body. So that's one layer of complexity, and then you have things like the value of your assessed property compared to the value of everyone else's assessed property. So if you did a major renovation and no one else on your block or street did, your value would climb higher than everybody else's value, and so your proportionate amount of taxes is going to increase. And or likely, if everybody else did renovations, you're like, no, I'm not going to, and yours was lower, you would get to see a decrease. So there's a number of factors and considerations that impact. So I don't want to tie that 5.01 municipal revenue requirement to I don't want the residents to do the math and come back, my taxes are 7%. Though they're not related numbers, even though they both have the word percent in it. So.
Thank you for that explanation. I think that sometimes the confusion is the communication is often around that percentage, and then people hone in on that percentage, but it can differentiate so significantly across the board. So I'm happy to hear that we will be putting forward a video with some additional explanation around that, and it can be confusing, so I don't blame anyone for it, but I think just having that understanding and the plain language explanation will be helpful. In addition to that, can we expect a little bit more plain language breakdown as to exactly where tax dollars are going?
Through the mayor to Councilor McCook.
I know we do that around budget time a little bit,
Yeah, so
but
nothing really planned as far as communication, because we've already spoken to the budget and all of the services and things that we're doing. We will be having a communication strategy throughout the year talking about some of those services that we do provide to the resident, but not really getting into the $6 goes to this and $100 goes to that. It's more of just here's some of the services we provide and for context. And it will be focused again when we're talking about, again, budget to service and how where those dollars would be going in the next cycle.
yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I just think sometimes some of those like clear pictographs are really easy to see and understand and kind of make sense of. And it might be a good refresher sometimes when these assessments come out for folks. But that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. One key thing, people listening at home, as well as Jay mentioned, is that municipalities like ourselves don't have the luxury of budgeting for a surplus or a deficit. It must be revenue neutral. The problems in the feds have a little more leeway when it comes to deficits, which I'm sure we're all very aware of. We need to make sure that our budget's balanced at the year when we present the budget to our residents. You want to comment on that, Jay, perhaps?
Just add another layer of complexity to that. So while federal and provincial bodies naturally get raises because one of their primary sources of income is income tax, and so as everybody makes more money, so do they. So they nobody talks about how much money they're making more every year because it's just built into the formula where municipalities face scrutiny every time when we have to do the same kind of increase because costs go up, but ours isn't tied to any sort of growth factor. So that's one of the challenges that municipalities face.
Yeah, just to help people understand the budget process, which can be a little complicated. Having said that, great questions, Kat. Thank you very much. Councillor Van Newkirk, Stephen, you have the floor for the next questions.
Yeah, thank you. Just backing up a little bit to the requisitioning bodies, just wondering if you can explain just a little bit more thoroughly what a requisitioning body is, like the schools or the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, and the relationship between them and what residents will see on the tax roll.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Newkirk. So a requisitioning body is a body empowered by the province to add to a municipal tax bill in order to collect funds that is necessary for their business. So for example, normally the one that's most associated is the education requisition. So the province requisitions based on geography and collects dollars from that perspective. It is not within the city's power or control of whatever that amount comes out to, and same with any other requisitioning body. So Leduc Housing has the authority to requisition the city of Beaumont for whatever dollar value they need in order to do their business and the things that they need to do, and the city has no control or say over what kind of amount that might be.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that provides some really good clarity. So, when you get your tax bill, you're going to have your school line and your Leduc Regional Housing Foundation line and your Beaumont line and your totals, right? So that's very, very well explained. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So just to rectify the same thing. So it comes right down to it. If someone's paying $5,000 a year in property tax, it's not all going to the city of Beaumont. There's money going to the school board or Leduc Housing as well. It's not entirely going to the city of Beaumont. People sometimes think that their entire tax bill goes to Beaumont. It doesn't. It supports the school board, the requisitioning body, or Leduc Housing, correct?
Yeah, so to you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. And using very round numbers, about 25% of the tax bill this year is for requisitioning bodies and not for the municipality.
Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilman Talabas, do you have any questions at this point?
Yes, Mayor, just a couple. I guess first comment, I was worried about how the conversation was going there. I thought someone was going to say that the budget balances itself, so glad that didn't happen. But I do appreciate, Jay, you putting together a video. Again, I'm also interested to see what that looks like, but any attempt that we make to better define the process to the general public, as well as, I guess, clarify and simplify the process, much appreciated. So the question is just, in terms of the requisitioning bodies, you spoke about how about 25% of the tax levy will be going to those bodies. Can you advise as to how much of an increase we've seen from those bodies, I guess, from previous years or last year?
Through the mayor to Councillor Natellenbos, I don't have the education one handy recently, but we were having a conversation about Leduc Housing. There was a substantial increase in their requisition this year to 500,000, give or take. The last few years that they've had in 2024 was just under 100,000. In 2023, it was just under 90,000, and just under 80,000 the year before that. So there was a little bit of a trend line, and there's a definite jump in this year's requisition for them. I don't think education did much this year, but I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then I guess just as a whole, would you know roughly what that increase would be that ties to that 5%? I guess it would be around 25% of that total, but in saying that, how much that increase was from the previous year?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
So you had mentioned that 25% of obviously the tax levies collected will go to those requisitioning bodies. Are you able to identify number-wise what that increase was from the previous year?
So while the magnitude of the Leduc Housing Foundation was 5 times what they normally do in the context of a $41 million or $43 million collection, that $400,000 change is not a big blip as far as what the taxpayers will pay in that regard. I would say, again, without having the education numbers right in front of me, I believe it would be pretty close. So it would probably still be in that 25% range, right, as it is right now.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And I would encourage everyone who has questions about this increase to look at the budget and the deliberations that took place. Obviously, this isn't the place for it. This is just the process that ties to formalizing that increase. But again, encourage everyone to look at why there is an increase and what options were proposed for efficiencies, as well as some of the options that were looked at. But I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will applaud administration as well, too. We listen to our residents because it is complicated. It simply is. So we're trying because it is complicated. It simply is. So we're trying to do a better job of communicating how the budget is arrived at, how the 5.01% is arrived at in the breakdown, and the requisitioning bodies that people sometimes don't realize are there. So we'll try to do a much better job, and we're on the right track, I think, to help our residents understand the nuances and how the tax process works and how it affects their houses. I tell people, if your assessed value goes up, that's a good thing if you have to sell your house, but it also means there's a tax increase with that. If your assessed value goes down, you get less if you sell your house, but you save a little bit of property tax. Sometimes you probably want to have more money in your pocket if you can, but assessed value does drive a big part of the tax assessment situation. So our communications hopefully will help alleviate some of the concerns that residents have, understand the process and how the tax bill works. So I'm looking forward to that communication piece. Seeing no further questions for first reading of the bylaw. At this point, seeing none, I will ask, sorry? I thought I heard something. No? Okay. At this point, I'll ask the voting process to be initiated for first reading. Councilor Talabas, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Council. That passed unanimously, 5-0 in favor of first reading. Is a member of Council willing to move second reading of bylaw 10, pardon me, 1081, I said the wrong number, sorry, 1081, I apologize. Councilor Newkirk, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that bylaw 1081-25 be given second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion for second reading. Councilor Telebus, do you have any questions for second reading?
I do not. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Councilor. Seeing no questions, would you please initiate the vote for second reading on bylaw 1081-25? Councilor Telebus, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Council, that passed unanimously, 5-0 in favor of second reading. At this point, I must ask that we give consideration for bylaw 1081-25 be considered for third reading. Councilor Penrod, would you care to move that, please? Your mic is on.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that bylaw 1081-25 be considered for third reading.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the consideration for third reading. Any members of council have any concerns or questions? Councilor Telebus, do you have any questions or concerns?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for consideration of third reading? Councilor Telebus, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. That carries 5-0 in favor of consideration for third reading. With that, I'll ask member of council to move third reading. Councilor McCook, would you care to move third reading?
Sure, Mayor. I move that bylaw 1081-25 be given third reading.
Thank you, Councilor. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Telebus, any questions?
No.
Thank you. Would you please initiate the voting process? Oh, hang on a second. Give me 1 second, sorry. Would you please initiate the voting process for third reading? Councilor Telebus, how do you vote on third reading?
In favor.
Thank you, Councilor. Council, that passes unanimously 5-0 in favor of third reading. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Harchuk. Appreciate the presentation. With that, next on our agenda item is Councilor inquiries. I believe Councilor Van Newkirk has a couple of inquiries. Would you please put Councilor Van Newkirk's first inquiry on the screen? Councilor Van Newkirk, please make your inquiry when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Please provide information on how the city is dealing with the complaints about unsightly construction sites and the garbage that is blowing from them onto private properties that surround the neighborhood.
Thank you, Councilor. You have a second one, I believe. Please make that when you're ready.
Thank you. The second one is around investor and developer service. Please provide information on the level of service, communication, and support that potential investors/developers receive from the city to bring investment or development projects to Beaumont. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I have an inquiry of my own, but are there Madam Clerk, any further inquiries of other members of council?
Oh,
No, Mayor, there's no further inquiries, just yours.
Okay, would you please put mine on the screen, please, Ms. Plashy, and I'll make my inquiry. Thank you. Please provide information on what type of mobility aids are allowed on transit, and specifically if e-scooters are allowed, if not why, and also provide, if available, what other municipalities in the Edmonton metropolitan area allow on their transit buses. Thank you. This came from a resident who has a disability concern. Thank you. Seeing no further inquiries or reports, next on our agenda is item 9, CEO update. Ms. O'Neill, are you able to provide an update? CEO Schwartz is not available this evening. Are you able to provide an update? Your microphone is on.
It's my pleasure to bring a couple of updates on behalf of CAO Schwartz. So our economic development team is at will be at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. We're looking to showcase Beaumont and promote and do some investment attraction there. And then secondly, we've been sweeping our arterial roadways. That's currently underway. And then the residential street sweeping will commence today or tomorrow and will take approximately 8 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. O'Neill on the CEO update? Seeing none. Next on our agenda is item 10, notice of the motion. Madam Clerk, any notice of the motion this evening from any members of council?
Thank you, Mayor. No, we do not have any notice of motions from council this evening.
We do not. Thank you very much. The next agenda, council, is item 11, adjournment. So seeing no further business before our council this evening, we are adjourned at 6:54. Thank you for attending in person and ran home. Enjoy your evening. We are adjourned.